On April 21st, 2026, the Corey Holcomb 5150 show aired an episode that caught a lot of people's attention. The show featured YouTuber Lakeisha Keisha as a guest. Shout out to her. But what really got people talking was how Corey addressed the ongoing Anton Daniels lawsuit. Now, for those who need a quick refresher, Anton Daniels' wife and daughter filed a civil lawsuit back in February. And rather than ignoring it or giving a straightforward response, Corey decided to handle it in a way that was very much on brand for him. Creative, calculated, and anything but boring.
Video. The truth, ladies.
You a monkey. You a monkey. You a monkey. I know it makes you sad and mad, girl.
You and your zookeeper husband wanted drama in the game and started trouble on the internet. Yes, you stooped, Joshua quit. Oh. Then y'all had a baby and another primate was born. But that's what you get.
That's what you get. That's what you get. That's what you get. That's what you get. All that makeup ain't hiding what is so plain to see. You a monkey. You a monkey.
I'm not gonna lie, it's genuinely hard to watch this without laughing. And I'll be honest with you, I know what he's doing is wrong, but part of me has to admit that this song and this animated cartoon might be the funniest thing I've seen on YouTube in a long time. Maybe since Tariq Nasheed dropped The Crispy Show and started clowning people like Roland Martin and others back in the day. It's that level of diabolical. And even though that was wrong too, as a black person, I still found it funny. This, I'm sorry, I know I've gone back and forth on Corey Holcomb, but this is genuinely hilarious. It's wrong, it's also hilarious. Both things are true at the same time. I'm setting aside the imagery he used, the monkeys and all of that, because I don't like that part of it at all. But the overall execution, it was funny. I'll own that. I had to almost turn the video off because I just couldn't keep watching it without losing it. I had to cut it off. Alright, now let's get into the other parts of the video, because here's where things get more serious. The real problem with this video is what comes next. Corey Holcomb actually tries to justify all of it by making this comment.
Don't even say names on my show.
How you say her name, a monkey?
I can't wait to if this thing actually goes through. It probably gets slapped out in California.
Yeah.
But let me tell you something, man. I can't wait till people, I hope that somebody feels like they can go in front of a judge and say, look, that's me, and he was talking about me. I can't wait. I am too smart to get caught up with the suckers.
So here, Corey Holcomb is leaning on what you might call the no-name defense. His argument is essentially this. Yes, there's a lawsuit from this individual, and he believes it will get thrown out. Why? Because he never explicitly named Anton Daniels, his wife, or his daughter anywhere in the content. His logic is that as long as he doesn't directly attach a name to what's being portrayed, he can't be held liable for it. Sure, he put him on a shirt, hypothetically speaking, but he never outright called anyone a monkey. That's his position. He's also making the case that he's simply too sharp to get caught up in situations like this because he's careful to avoid using specific names when he's in the middle of a conflict with someone. In his mind, that layer of distance is enough to protect him legally. And then the House of Hypocrites, who were also reviewing this video, had their own take on it.
Made a point that Corey Holcomb gonna mention, and it's just almost common sense though, because when he posted that particular picture depicting Anton's I guess wife and daughter as the apes that you see in this video, he never said, hey, this is your daughter, hey Anton, this is your wife. He specifically said, hey Lane, this is dedicated to you. Didn't even put a name on it. You feel me? They didn't name Anton, didn't name his daughter, didn't name his wife. So when I seen it on the lawsuit, I'm like, well, y'all only inferring this is you, because he never said it was you, right? And if you haven't seen the lawsuit breakdown, Well, I'm gonna put it on the video. I'm gonna put it in the description, or it's gonna be at the end of this video. But yeah, I was like, they took ownership of the characters of the apes, and I'm like, do you feel like this is a representation of you, right? A hit dog's only holler. You're not about to put depict me as a something derogatory. You feel me?
His argument here is built around the old saying, "Hit dogs will holler." The idea being that Anton's family is only reacting the way they are because they recognize themselves in the depiction, even though Corey Holcomb dedicated the content to, quote, "you lame," without ever attaching a specific name to it. He also challenges the legal concept of representation directly. His position is that a court shouldn't be able to recognize these animated characters as direct representations of Anton's family if no names were ever used. And he takes it a step further. He argues that anyone claiming ownership of those characters is actually working against themselves. His logic? Why would you want to say that's you? Are you admitting you're a monkey? But here's the thing. When you actually watch the video, it doesn't take much to connect the dots. One of the monkeys is wearing glasses, another has a beard. That combination pretty clearly points to Anton. Then there's a daughter and a wife. The lineup is right there. Now that's one interpretation, but it's hard to argue it's not the most obvious one. Anyway, let's move on to the next person Corey Holcomb brought up in the video.
All kind of people talk crazy. Monkeys, zookeepers.
A lot of them out there.
And there's so many people
How
talk
you try
crazy.
to come back from how you do shit?
You work for the government and start causing drama for
and then
people.
come back around like ain't nothing happened a couple years ago. You got to be a to get back to normal from taking.
So Corey also brings up someone with a rape allegation. And in my honest opinion, I agree with the House of Hypocrites here. He's referring to Poetic Flocka. Now, to be clear, this allegation is not directly against Poetic Flocka himself, but allegedly involves someone close to him, someone within his circle. But by bringing it up the way he did, the implication lands squarely on Poetic Flocka, even without the name ever being said out loud. So his argument is the same. If Poetic Flocka tried to sue him over that comment, he'd say, "I never mentioned your name, so I'm good," right? Well, here's where the bad news starts. In my honest opinion, there are two major problems with this whole strategy. Number one, if you go on camera and say, "I'm too smart to get caught up in this because I never use names," you are essentially telling the entire world, yes, that's exactly who I'm talking about, I just worded it carefully enough to avoid accountability. And then, in the same breath, you play the very video that depicts the exact people you are currently being sued by. That is a serious problem. I genuinely don't know who is advising him legally, but that move is hard to defend. Because here's what a lot of people don't realize. There is a legal concept called the of and concerning requirement. This is a foundational principle in defamation law. It states that a plaintiff must prove that a defamatory statement was actually about them. But here's the critical part. The law is far more sophisticated than simply searching for a name. For a statement to be legally actionable, it only needs to be understood by a reasonable third party as referring to the plaintiff. It does not matter whether the speaker intended to be vague or claimed they were talking about someone else. All that matters is whether an ordinary viewer or listener could identify the subject based on context. If they can, the of and concerning requirement is satisfied. Now, let's look at what's called the context test and how it applies here. One factor courts look at is unique physical attributes, things like a distinctive beard, glasses, specific tattoos, or a recognizable medical condition. Now, look at the animated character in this video. He's standing at a microphone. He has a beard. He has glasses. Place that side by side with Anton Daniels, and it takes very little effort for any reasonable viewer to connect the two, even without a name attached. Then there's timing. Corey literally mentioned the lawsuit on his own podcast, saying it would be thrown out in California. The cartoon was published right around that same window. The timing lines up directly. This also connects to what's known as the small group theory. When a defamatory statement targets a small, identifiable group, every member of that group may have grounds to pursue a defamation claim. And then there's the audience itself. Just look at the comments from the live stream. People were laughing because they knew exactly who was being depicted. The joke only lands because viewers recognized Anton, his wife, and his family in those characters. That recognition is precisely what makes it legally significant. Now, and this is important, Anton Daniels is a public figure. Public figures are absolutely fair game for criticism, satire, and even roasting. But his wife and his underage daughter are in all likelihood private individuals, and the legal bar for private individuals to win a defamation case is significantly lower. Using derogatory imagery against a child, in particular, carries serious legal risk because at that point it stops being satire and starts looking a lot like harassment.
Corey can call it a joke, and like I said, parts of it made me laugh too. But a courtroom is not going to see it the way a live audience does. That's the distinction I'm drawing. If the entire legal strategy rests on the assumption that courts only care about verbatim names, that strategy has a real problem, because the law actually cares about reasonable identification. Let's look at the Restatement of Torts, Section 564, essentially the Bible of American tort law, referenced by judges across the country. It states that a defamatory communication is considered to be made about a person if the recipient of that communication correctly or even mistakenly, but reasonably, understands it as referring to them. In other words, a name is not required. It is enough that the description leads those who know the person to understand exactly who is being referenced. Now let's get into some actual cases to back this up. Now, let's look at what happened with Vivera Pharmaceuticals versus Gannett Company, which played out in Fairfax County, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. During the COVID era, USA Today published an article targeting Vivera's CEO, Paul Edelat, highlighting his legal troubles and describing him as unscrupulous. Now notice, they went after the person, not the company directly. But here's what's interesting. It was the pharmaceutical company that filed the lawsuit, not the CEO himself. And the court allowed that claim to move forward. Why? Because Edelat was the public face of the company, and accusations of fraud against him could reasonably lead people to question the integrity of the company's products, in this case, COVID-19 test kits. The personal attack carried over into corporate damage, and the court recognized that. Now, let's go back even further, to a case from 1939 involving Reverend Clarence Cobbs of the First Church of Deliverance and the Chicago Defender newspaper. On November 11, 1939, Reverend Clarence Cobbs was arrested and accused of having a sexual encounter with a 19-year-old man inside the church. The Chicago Defender covered it that day. Then 2 weeks later, on November 25, 1939, they ran a follow-up piece about a state attorney's probe into what the article described as a scandal surrounding Reverend Cobbs, referencing widespread rumors of, quote, a scandalous and unscrupulous nature. Now, here's the key. In the context of Bronzeville, the Chicago neighborhood where Cobbs was a well-known figure, that phrase was a very thin veil. Everyone in that community understood exactly what was being implied. The article referenced his annual vacation trips with his male secretary, Edward Baldwin. It pointed to behavior the state attorney was investigating. It never explicitly said he was gay. It never named the specific act. It just called it scandalous and unscrupulous. But Reverend Cobbs sued the Chicago Defender anyway, and won. The paper was forced to retract the article. Why? Because it satisfied the of and concerning requirement. Even without spelling it out, the implication was crystal clear to anyone who understood the community and the context. You didn't have to say it directly. Everyone already knew what you meant, and that was enough to constitute libel. So, bring it back to today. Personally, I don't have anything against Corey Holcomb. I think he's funny, I think he's talented. But I have to give you what I genuinely believe is the honest truth here. And I think he may not be as legally protected as he believes he is. So, with that said, what do you think? Drop it in the comments. This is your boy Yoshi Doo Jackson, back at it again with another episode of Celebrity Junk. I appreciate everything you all do. Subscribe and hit that bell. We're out.